Hello, I'm Michael Sean Comerford, and I am with the Story Cycle, Americans in a Pandemic. Bicycling Route 66 from Chicago to LA, asking COVID questions. And I am here on Santa Monica Pier at the final stop of that 2,500-mile bicycle ride. The almost 100 interviews are up on my YouTube page. I'm going to be writing a book about this whole process, and we're going to try to get a documentary made. But behind these incredible interviews, and that's the most astonishing thing about this whole trip, was how articulate people are about their own situations, about their own thoughts about COVID. Some having suffered greatly from COVID, some having varied opinions on how they are surviving and living through COVID, because most people do not die of COVID, most people are living with COVID. That's the way human beings have been through all of history with pandemics and with plagues. We live through them, some as a species, and this is a documenting of how we're doing it, and all the stories we tell ourselves as we go through a big historic event like this year of COVID. And so this is an update from behind the scenes. And first, my last update was in Seligman, Arizona. From there, I went to Kingman, and let's catch up with my notes here. I went to Kingman, and from Kingman, which I believe it's a town with a lot of history, and I believed it because I was riding to be a landmark. That in Barstow, and then of course LA. And but from Kingman, I bicycled up through the Black Mountains and 20-some switchbacks and crazy curves and no shoulders to this pass that I was going over called Sitgreaves Pass. No guardrails and sharp 1,000-foot drops off. And the mountains, the Black Mountains there, were just magnificent. And the steep grade made getting over to Oatman all the more rewarding. And Oatman, on the other side of the pass, is a former boom town, mining town, that had a kind of a famous hotel there, and stars and starlets had visited that on the way on Route 66, out east or back. And but when the boom town went bust, they let the donkeys go wild in the mountains, and the donkeys are now a tourist attraction for Oatman. And so you go there and you see an old boomtown, mining town with donkeys, and after coming through that pass and coming up those switchbacks and that steep grade, it was a lot of fun to see Oatman. And then I rode down the mountains into the Mojave Desert, and I started into Needles and started 3 days in the Mojave Desert. And you can look at it two ways or more. But two ways: either I wasn't properly prepared with hydration, with enough water. I should have had a gallon or more of water with me. Or you could say I was so tough I still made it even without the proper hydration. I prefer the latter. And but the first day I made it to a place called Goff's, and it's barely a place. I don't know what the population is. It's under 1,000, and it has a cultural center, and no other businesses that I could see. And the cultural center was the Mojave Cultural Center Mojave Desert Cultural Center was closed. So I laid down and I was just beat. I couldn't go another foot, but I laid down in the 100-degree heat with my bandanas over my face, but I was dehydrating as I laid down. it was a bad situation, and up comes a guy in a golf cart, and he says, "Oh, we're caretakers of the cultural center. Come on in. We'll give you water and a sandwich." And it turned out he and his wife were also entertainers at a local dude ranch. And so I said, "You know what? I love stories and I love songs." And they said, "Okay." So they brought out their guitars and they sang Route 66 and a gospel song, and the husband told a story song while his wife was singing behind him, and it was terrific. And then they challenged me to tell a story and sing some songs, and I did. And when I left, I'm not sure that I didn't tell more stories and sing more songs than they did. So it was a give and take that was just magic. That day turned around from near disaster to one of the best days I have had in the desert. Almost, just a miraculous, almost miraculous turnaround. And then, but then I had 2 more days, those 3 days going across the desert, where I really conked out. And I was underneath I-40 when a California State environmentalist stopped by, and he offered me, I was in the shade, but I was laying down and dead tired. He offered me water and an orange, and then he says, "When you ride down the road, stop by. I'm going to show you something later." So I'm going to be working up ahead of you. So I kept riding down the road, and sure enough, there he was with a telescope, and I looked in his telescope, and on the side of the mountain, I think he called it the Marble Mountains, was a desert mountain bighorn. A desert bighorn sheep, that's what they call them. And the sheep was looking right at me from the mountain. And he says, it's crazy. He says, it's a mile away, but it's used to seeing cars go by, but it's not used to seeing people looking at it. So he could see me from that far away. We needed a telescope to see it at all. But it was a magnificent sight on the side of the mountain. And he was an incredible guy to stop by, and his views were incredible, were amazing on COVID. Then I rode up to Amboy, which is another desert town with only a gas station in it, and nobody lives in that town, so it's a ghost town. But I got some water, no food, just snacks. I tented out under the stars. It was beautiful, but without food, I woke up just as tired as I had gone to sleep. So I got up the next day and I started riding, and again, I didn't have a gallon of water on me. I just hadn't learned after 2 days of struggling, and I was really hurting for certain, but I made it to Cudlow, and Cudlow is a small town with a gas station, a hotel, and as far as I can tell, this is all they have, is a gas station, hotel, and cafe. And at the gas station, you go over to the gas station, and that's where they have the keys to the hotel across the street. So you got to check in for the hotel at the Chevron station, and then you get a little off at the cafe if you want. So you got to get the feeling that all 3 businesses were owned by the same entity. And then I came up on Cajon Pass, which is not the highest pass. It's in the middle of the, it's outside of LA, and it's between the San Bernardino and the San Gabriel Mountains, and it's known for having the San Andreas Fault formed those mountains and that pass, and then it's known for Santa Ana winds coming by as high as 80 miles an hour and fog up and down there. But I had great weather, and the grade going up was gradual, but the grade going down was 6% grade, and the fall-offs was a couple thousand feet. So with the high traffic, because you're on Interstate 15, I believe it is, with high traffic of trucks and cars going by fast, with the cliffs and the high mountains and all of that, and the 6% grade going down, it was an exciting time, and I really opened up a couple times and let her rip going down the mountain, and it was fun. And then came into LA, and I stayed in the Arts District the first night, and I stayed in kind of a seedy Hollywood hotel the second night above a bar. Now LA is down to a yellow phase, a yellow zone, and that's the lowest one because they've had so few deaths and cases recently. So the bar that I was above was open till 2 a.m. and kept me up. But here I am on Santa Monica Pier, and this is what happened when I arrived. I met a reporter for the Santa Monica Daily Press, and she put me on the front page of the Santa Monica Press, Daily Press, and journalist bikes Chicago to Santa Monica collecting COVID stories. And I was able to meet with a Hollywood agent yesterday, and I'm trying to get a documentary made. But it's spectacular to end this trip, 2,500 miles on Santa Monica Pier, because it is a lot of fun here and exciting. And I am so glad that you came along with me on this story cycle. And it took about a little over 2 months to do. And we are, now the hard work is beginning, because I have to put together these interviews and see what threads go through them and what themes make sense, and see how I can deepen the experience, deepen the observations of people and along the way. They were so articulate, but there was such a wide variety, and I thought maybe that we'd get the same opinions over and over again, but it was not true. We had everything from people believing that their faith was going to save them through this pandemic year, so God was going to save them, to people believing that the government was causing this in order to control our minds or to control our behavior, to people believing in fatalism, that the hair on my head was counted the day I was born, and the days of my life are counted too. And to folk remedies. I even heard a folk remedy talked about here in Hollywood and in the rural America. And folk wisdom being exchanged between people. Not everybody just taking the government's word for what's best for us. So I find this project extremely revealing and entertaining. I hope these updates were entertaining too. And I gotta say that I have changed on this trip. The way I see America, the way I've seen America's Main Street, and I have a new feeling for how people are so resilient and how they adapt to every kind of crisis. And so I want to thank you for coming with me on the story cycle, Americans in a Pandemic. That's the bicycle right there with the sign on the back saying, "Tell me a story," which was a great way to meet people. Route 66 with the Ferris wheel behind. Thank you again. Look for the book, look for the documentary, and bye for now. Thank you.